Peace. What's happening, good people? Good to see y'all again tonight. This is Riot Starter TV. I'm your host, Kalonji Changa. And as always an honor and a privilege to be able to stand in front of good people and talk politics, talk revolution, and talk about some of the things that's going on in this rugged society. If it's your first time tuning in, definitely appreciate you. Welcome to Black Power Media. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and you will receive all notifications. It's going on 1 year as far as Riot Starter TV. This Thursday will be 1 year Riot Starter TV. We've had some great guests on, and it is our intention and mission to continue to, educate, inspire, and politicize the masses. So again, thank you all. And I would like to invite you all to invite some guests on board. I mean, invite your folks, let them know that we exist. Tonight's show, I wanted to dedicate to a very powerful sister, sister that I've known for quite some time, who just made a transition. And I'm talking about none other than my comrade, freedom fighter, Karen Marie Mason. Many folks, in Atlanta area know her, but not only in the Atlanta area, many folks around the planet know and knew her. She was a well-known branding expert, creating marketing plans for folks like Mary J. Blige, Criss Cross, Ziggy Marley, Supercat, In Vogue, Gerald Levert, the Fugees, Busta Rhymes. She started off at Sony and Elektra, and she worked on projects for Sade and Michael Jackson and Alexander O'Neal, to name a few. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. But for us and for me, I knew her as a freedom fighter. I knew her as a general in the People's Army. She's someone who had supported our organization, the FTP movement, since its inception. She definitely, put in a lot of work around these parts. She was a host at WRFG, which is our public access station here in Atlanta, where we're broadcasting from. So I wanted to take the time to say that, to dedicate this episode to Karen Marie Mason. If you're unfamiliar with Karen Marie Mason, hit that Google, check her out. She's definitely, a warrior. And we want to spread love and send love to her family, including her daughter, Kenya Jordan, who is a young woman now. I met her as a youth. She was the editor of a magazine back in the day called Black Girl Magazine. Folks may have seen her on Oprah. She was like 14 years old. She's a prodigy, and she's still, putting in that work and carrying on the legacy of her mother, Karen Marie Mason. So definitely, again, I want to dedicate this particular episode to Karen Marie Mason. Tonight, as always, we have a powerful show. We always have powerful shows. If you haven't checked out our broadcast before, get caught up. We have some dynamite interviews with folks from the Black Panther Party, Black Panther veterans, folks from the Black Liberation Army, the Young Lords, the Weather Underground, Move, We have children of freedom fighters such as the children of Patrice Lumumba, children of France Fanon, or the daughter of France Fanon, rather, and so much more. Artists, so on and so forth. And we do that not because we want props, or we're looking to get a bunch of likes, and internet love. We do it for the love of our people, because many of us on this platform, we consider ourselves freedom fighters, and freedom fighters first and foremost. This work that I do here at Riot Starter TV is, again, simply to politicize and educate the masses, because of the fact that at the end of the day, we have to win. It's not about all the the bullshit that's going on in the world. You know what I'm saying? It's not about Will smacking Chris Rock and all that dumb shit. This is about hardcore freedom fighting. So, again, follow us, Black Power Media, on Twitter, and all your social media outlets. And, my handle is right here at Kalonji Changa. Our guest tonight is a sister who I met maybe 30 something years ago. And when I met her, she was an entertainment lawyer. And, she could tell you more about that than I can. But she was serious then. I met her up in Connecticut, where I'm from, and where she was stationed at the time. And I've been following her work for a few decades now. And she's been putting in work mainly around Haiti, talking about freedom fighting at work. And she's far from an entertainer, although she has, authored several books and plays and so on and so forth. But so we're excited to have on tonight Ezili Dantò. So without further ado, it looks like she's ready to rumble, like she's ready to tear it up. You know what I mean? I figured I had to get somebody that's rough and rugged, because we gotta stay sucker free over here. So I had to call on my comrade and sister. I don't know if I should call her elder because she's so youthful and everything, but we're gonna say that anyway. We're gonna say an OG, original gorilla. So without further ado, we're gonna bring on Ezili Dantò. What's happening?
Honor and respect, my brother. Honor and respect. Long time ago.
Man,
Stanford.
Yeah, I said close to 3 decades, but we only like 25 and 23. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm down with that one.
no doubt, no doubt. Again, man, I've been trying to get you on for a minute. We know that you don't like talking to folks these days because a lot of people ain't worth their ears are clogged, and they walk around talking about they woke, but they're sleepwalking. So again, I'm definitely, honored to have you on board. I want to start off first and foremost by asking you, for folks who are unfamiliar, the meaning of your name.
Warrior mother.
Warrior mother. Yes, yes. And Ezili Dantò represents who and what?
She represents the archetype, the energy, the vibration that quicken the warriors at Bokaimambo Ima on August 14th that began the Haitian Revolution. They went back to source and they called upon the energy of the Great Mother, and she came first. That's
Right.
Èzili Dantò. She represents Mahat. She represents justice. She represents beauty, femininity, and justice.
Right on.
She
Right
wanted
on.
justice for her people, and she quickened them on August 14th, 1791, to begin the Haitian Revolution. There are two energies in our culture, the mother and the father, Ogu and Dantò, both warriors, both from the vibration of Pitwo. And I was given this name and I carry it. I run the Free Haiti movement, the Ezili Network, um, and various other organizations that's really all about the liberation of the Black woman and Black males' children.
Right on, right on. And tell us about, Free Haiti. What is that about? Because, there's folks who are new on the block and they hear you talking, but, I don't know if they feel you just yet. So, you know,
Sure. Well, we might have to go back a little bit in history, but I was born in Haiti, and my parents were fleeing the dictatorship during the Cold War, where the United States put in dictators in order to maintain their control of Haiti. And my parents came here. But that's really how I began. I became a lawyer. You met me as a lawyer. I was at that time doing entertainment law. But when Jean-Bertrand Aristide in 1991 was deposed, he was the first democratically elected president of Haiti. When he was deposed, I met him in Washington, where he was in exile. And I started writing about how I just thought it was egregious that the United States should decide who should be the leader of a black country. At that, that was young me. It's been almost 30 years now. When he went back, I was one of his lawyers.
mm,
And my whole journey has been about telling that story and standing with the people until we're free.
right on, right on. So, before we jump into some of the meat, I can't start off talking about Haiti without, jumping into the meat. What are what's the current state? Because you talked about him being deposed, and we know that since then there's been assassinations. We know that corruption has been widespread, courtesy of the West, and
That's
so
right.
for folks who are unclear, because you often hear about oh, there was an earthquake, and oh, someone's assassinated, and unfortunately, as we like to say, our people here in particular are politically retarded. You know what I'm saying? They are frozen. They're stuck when it comes to what's going on with not only our people, but just geopolitics and what's going on the planet. You know, as a whole. So, what is the current state of Haiti, and why does it exist in the state it does now?
Okay. So I told you that when Aristide was returned back in 2000 and, excuse me, 1994, that was the first time I went back to Haiti as one of his lawyers. The United States has deposed him, got him out of office twice. That first time, and then in 2004, during the bicentennial of Haiti's 200th anniversary of our independence, which was in 1804. And for those who know nothing about Haiti, um, it was the first Black nation to be created and take on the name of the indigenous people who were on that island uh, when in 1492 Christopher Columbus, the pedophile and bringer of doom, began our Holocaust. So we were the first Africans to be imported and the first Africans also from here in the Western Hemisphere who cut our chains and took back the source of our culture. Um, but in 1994, uh, first it was Bush the father, the CIA director, ex CIA director, that got rid of Aristide. And then again, like I said, in 2004, when he was reelected, they took him out and they brought in a group of ambassadors. Uh, they're called the core group, and they are the ones right now running IT. They are the Western nations, the Leclerc um, armada really came back. What the United States does right now, post Cold War, instead of saying that they are keeping dictators in office as a bulwark for communism, when the Berlin Wall fell, as you know, they couldn't use that excuse anymore. So they started saying they were bringing democracy.
Hmm.
So, but really, what they mean is that they are putting in puppets through fake elections that they control, that can provide them with our resources. Haiti has massive resources and has a geopolitical position that the United States want. So, in their war, in geopolitical war, the Haiti is between Cuba and Venezuela. You know, right now there's a war in Ukraine, and the same template of how they treat Haiti they use also for the nations the United States wants to colonize. They use proxies to fight their war. Right now, their proxy is Ukraine, but really what they're doing is pushing Russia. What they did in Haiti in 2004 is deport, summarily deport the democratically elected president and put in the United Nations, which is a tool of empire. Um, the ambassadors are the ones that are always maintaining American imperialism. They're career officers. So in Haiti, the core group is made up of the United States that leads it, France, Canada, and they had to bring Brazil in there because it's the largest economy outside the United States in the West, in Canada. So it's the United States, the core group, the group of nations that are running what people call hate. We don't say hate because that wasn't the name, but because the former enslavers um, hate that we were the first to put liberty into application, that we were the ones, the brave and the free. We did this. The Africans who became Haitian in the land of the Black Caracals and the Guaninis and the Tainos. Um, they were the first to to essentially do what the Nazarene never did, what the Abrahamic religions never did, which was to say that owning human beings is immoral, unethical, and a violation of the most basic of human dignity and humanity, human rights. So Haiti was the country that did that. And so it is the real land of the free and the brave. But as you know, the Europeans have an illusion of who and what they are, and they have their media and what we call their najoki, their various forms of human activity that they use, which is all about domination. So in this situation, when I went back to Haiti in 1994 as President Aristide's lawyer, the United States was in the process of getting rid of the movement that had destroyed dictatorship, and it took them some time to pummel the people. Um, when they came back on the 2004, February 29th, 2004, because of deflecting racism, they used the UN as their proxy military, and the UN came with all the nations. Like I said, I call it the Leclerc Armada. Leclerc, when we won our independence, it was against France, and Napoleon, the greatest hero, general of the European, was what we beat. We beat three of the biggest powers of that time: the French, the Spanish, and the English in combat to gain our liberty. And so, but the Haitian people are always fighting, and we're always fighting alone. People talk about progressives and white saviors. I run the Free Haiti movement, and my biggest enemies are the white saviors, because obviously they don't think there's anything wrong with their system. And for the longest time, from 2004 until the the UN was taken out of Haiti in 2017. They stayed for 13 years, and they terrorized Haiti. When they left us with just terror. Haiti had one of the lowest violence rates when they came in 2004. By the time they left, we had we went from 5.6 over 100,000 in terms of a homicide rate, which was less than Dominican Republic, which they have their tourism, less of course than Jamaica, than Brazil. For instance, Brazil's violence rate is like 54 over 100,000. We were 5.6 when the UN came in with a Chapter 7 shoot to kill mission on a nation that wasn't at war and that did not have a conflict or civil war. They came to destroy us. On on July 7th of last year, 2021, the United States was complicit in orchestrating the assassination of the puppet president that they had put in. And since we don't have all the times to go into the details, you guys can find my work on my website, ezili.com. But to boil it down for you, right now, Haiti has no parliament, no judiciary. All the institutions have been destroyed by the UN and the core group. The core group is the United States, France, Canada, Spain, Germany, Brazil, 6 nations, plus 3 organizations that comprise most of the nation in the Western Hemisphere and all the nation in the EU. So the 3 organizations that have representative in Haiti, outside of those 6 nations I just told you about, Spain, remember,
Think you may have froze a little bit.
colonizer. I don't know what just happened.
Yeah, I
But
think.
anyway, so Spain, we have 2 hour east, Dominican Republic, which is another story, which is like the South winning the war. We freed the whole entire island in 1804, but the European is such a Neanderthal warmonger that they have never stopped trying to reverse the Haitian Revolution. The fact that Haitians still exist is a miracle. So today, the current situation is they have destroyed all our institution. Today is March 29th. It is the anniversary of the Haitian 1987 Haitian Constitution. And that's what they want to destroy, because what happened was Duvalier was in office all the way up to Duvalier, the father and the son, till 1986. And in 1987, Haitians got together, all civil society and lawyers and all of the different various groups, and they came up with a constitution to represent who and what we are. It's called the 1987 Constitution. The United States never wants us to implement that constitution. And since 1987, they have been going at us and going at us. And what they want is to put in a puppet who's going to do a referendum to amend the Constitution, because one of the more important provisions is that all Haiti, no one can own a mine in Haiti. No foreigner can own what's under our water, what's under our soil. So that's one of the reasons why they have been fighting very hard to have these fake elections again. Under Obama, they had 3 fake elections. He brought us the Clintons. That was between 2008 and until he was out of office, 2016. So the 3 organizations, other than those 6 nations I just enumerated, are the Organization of American States, and that's very ironic because Haiti not only freed itself and that whole island, but we freed five Latin American countries. But they have come back to destroy us. So the Organization of American State is complicit. They're part of the core group, the European Union, and of course that organization. I always say that we're going to take down the most criminal organization on the planet, the United Nations. So those three are the ones that they use to deflect from the quiet genocide going on in Haiti. I can tell you the specific about July 7th and why they murdered their own puppet government, who they had, who was a drug money laundering. They always put in criminals, people that they have the DEA has dossiers on. But I'll wait for you to if you have any questions on what I've said, or if you want me to go on, you let me know.
Oh no, we just getting started. Don't tease us now. You know, let's talk about that, because that's very important, because as you mentioned, the U.S. is notorious for training and uh, instituting certain, puppet leaders and puppet governments. So why is it, playing crackers advocate? Why would they want to murder their own? Why would they want to murder someone who um, who they brought into power? Why their own puppet?
All right. So Jovenel Moise had overstayed his term. He was supposed to have left like the year before on February 7th, but he said he was going to leave February 7th of the next year. And that was like totally illegal and against the Constitution. But the United States needed him so that he could do a referendum to change the Constitution. But Haitians always fight. And we had millions on October 18th, 2018. I mean, since the UN got into IET, Haitians have been fighting back. And I can tell you that as someone who's been part of that fight, um, no one really came to our aid but ourselves. There is a left right bipartisan conspiracy, obviously, to destroy IET. We are the weakest link, like I said. We have no. We are surrounded by the waters of geography is very important, and I'm always saying that to my people. So we there's the Windward Passage that divides us between Haiti and Cuba. Your audience already know that the reason Cuba still has an inkling of sovereignty is because they have allied with Russia. Right below us, there's Venezuela, and they've Venezuela also has the largest oil reserve in the world, and the United States, of course, and the robber barons and the 1%. They want it. So, but Venezuela has allied with Russia. The United States cannot afford to lose Haiti. It built, when it got to Haiti in 2004, it built the largest U.S. embassy in the Western Hemisphere there, while the UN and all of these various nations put on uniforms to do nothing except rape our children and later on give us cholera. But the reason that they and we'll never be able to, of course, to prove it, but I can tell you the reason that they killed or orchestrated the killing through their agents. To make things simple, I always try to give my people like some templates. So when I came out here to do free IET, free Haiti, I my template is the guerrilla warfare of the Haitian Revolution, and the epistemology and the of that, which was in the Queen Nzinga's language of the Kinkongo language, and the when on August 14th, 1791, you had all of these Africans getting together to say we've had 300 years since 1503 the first African was brought to Haiti. So we didn't get our independence till 1804. That was nearly 300 years of the most 300 years of the most barbaric, the most terrible type of brutality you would not imagine that a human being could inflict on other sentient beings. But so um, on July 7th, 2021, a group of 18 Colombian mercenaries who flew into Haiti through the Dominican Republic, along with some DEA assets, Haitian Americans who have been acknowledged by the DEA to be informants of the DEA, led a unit that went around 1 a.m. to the house of the Haitian president. And when they got there, they had a megaphone, the Haitian American who was a DEA informant. And they said, "This is the DEA. Drop all your guns." Outside his house, there was, his private security, and inside was supposed to be the sort of Blackwater white security guards that these puppets always hire and always have. But for some reason, nobody asked about what happened to those folks. But outside was his security. Most of the people in the Haitian police, in the Haitian parliament, um, this is how it works in Haiti and pretty much all over the Caribbean, right? Colombia produces 70% of the world's cocaine. The three letter institutions of you know who they are: DEA, CIA, FBI. They all in there at various points, essentially taking that contraband. Uh, they have the Haitian oligarchs who come from Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. They they were refugees who were fleeing, let's say, the fall of the Ottoman Empire about 100 years ago. Christians that the United States uses as the middleman to destroy Haiti through, the mulatto factor, so those oligarchs, they own the ports around Haiti, and they get their drugs, and they bring it to the United States to then feed them to my children, and feed the prison industrial complex. And the money that they make, as you know, from the Contra Iran affair, they use for their Black Ops operation and their military regime change operation. On July 7th, 2021, these 18 or so Colombians, most have, no, all of them had been trained by U.S. military. Your folks must understand that Colombia is a white ring uh, 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 nation that's control. It's a clientele state of the United States. And so they use all these mechanisms of providing people with passports, drugs, visas, education, in order to have a level of a class of people with guns that are going to control the masses for empire. And so in Haiti, we have the Syrian Lebanese oligarchy. Um, they own 98% of the economics in Haiti. The top, the billionaires of the Caribbean live in Haiti, the place where you always hearing how poor we are. Um, Bijou is the top one. He he's an Israeli from Syria, Aleppo. So imagine Aleppo, right, in Syria. There's a war against the president there, Assad, and the United States, of course, is financing the opposition to Assad in Syria. Um, the top billionaire in Haiti is originally from Aleppo. This is really important. Hold that for a minute. When the Colombians, former U.S. assets, came through Dominican Republic, which wants to destroy Haiti, obviously, they think they're not black. They think they're not descendants of black people, and their whole thing is the Dominican women are the most the fourth prostituted women in the world. They send thousands of them to Spain to feed the perverted desires of these former Romans and so on. So essentially, they came in, they said this was a DEA operation, and then they went in there and murdered the president. And that's it. It's been since then. Haiti has not had a president. The core group, through a tweet and their own press releases, appoints a prime minister. So Ariel Henry is the current prime minister. He's a technocrat. He's a he's one of these educated Haitians who've been part of all of their tools, their organizations that they use to maintain, to use them as overseers. So that's really the scenario. They killed him because he 35 days, a month, a little bit over a month before he was killed. Remember, I told you my parents left Haiti because it was a death sentence to be called a communist. Not
Right.
that he was a communist, but they were killing people indiscriminately and using that as a pretext, or that anyone who was trying to take down down Duvalier. So he went looking for life elsewhere, as Haitians are doing now, as we've been doing forever. We are the most hated people in the Caribbean, wherever we go, and there's thousands and thousands of Haitians everywhere who are fleeing this fire, that the quiet genocide in Haiti. So 35 days before he was assassinated by these groups of people who are connected to U.S. central agencies through USDEA. For instance, like I said, the Colombian military, all these people are trained by the United States. The security guards that were around his house are U.S. assets. They were trained from Haiti. Some of them went to Ecuador to be trained, Costa Rica to be trained. This is the factory mill of creating little tonton macoutes. So Jovenel Moise, his term was ending. He was staying on illegally. Now, of course, you see how every the demon rats are jumping up and down, talking about how Trump, wouldn't accept that he hadn't lost the election, and he was
Right.
going to stay on a year. He wanted to stay on for another term. Well, the United States is the one that unilaterally sanctioned this man staying on beyond the fake 5 years that he had. So, anyways, uh, 30 days before he was assassinated, trying to find a way so that he doesn't, because like I said, before he was put in as president, he had been indicted as a money launderer. During the whole time he's president, and this is their template. When the United States wants something, they'll say, like they did with Noriega, if you don't do what we tell you to do, you're gonna end up in Miami in a prison. As you know, the guy who helped them take down Aristide, Guy Philippe, is now in prison. these Negroes, and I spell Negro Kneegrow. These Negroes never learn. They always think they're going to outsmart the guy, but they always, once he finished using them, um, they end up in prison somewhere in Miami, like Noriega. So seeing that his term was over, that he hadn't really fulfilled the referendum thing he was supposed to do, and trying to, there's internal, his political party is called PHTCOP. And in 2010, when the earthquake hit Haiti, uh, in 33 seconds, 316,000 Haitians were dead, and over 2 millions were in the streets. And the Obama unleashed Hillary and Bill Clinton on us. And so you have a situation in IT where this guy doing his term, the person that Hillary and Bill Clinton put in office was like the person that let me see, it's 2010. I think around that same time, uh, you're going to have a 2014 in the Ukraine. You're going to have a regime change like we had in Haiti in 2004, where they
Right.
put in a
That's
U.S. puppet, right?
yeah.
And then eventually this guy, Zelensky, excuse me. But so their regime change is always about getting a person who's going to only be interested in whatever the U.S. interest is. Like in the Ukraine, the U.S. interest is just keep pushing into the buffer states of the former Soviet Union, and not allow them to have that natural gas go through the Baltic Sea, the Nord Stream 3, excuse me, Nord Stream 2. In IT, same thing, right? The head of Venezuelan oil is in IT's waters. IT is a land of mountain, and 66 million years ago, an asteroid hit us, and those mountains are made of iridium, which is what asteroids are. It's very heat resistance, and they use it for their spaceships. So they have been steady taking it out. Um, 1 ton of iridium is worth, you know, 45 million that they're saying now. But when I started looking into it, the Haitian geologist said it was 45 billion a ton. You can look it up. It's a very heat resistant and heat resistant a metal that they use in their quests to go colonize space. So 1 month before he was assassinated, he had accepted, in an effort to give himself room, and maybe he wanted to do something for IT. He realized, well, it wasn't him. There was a there was a controversy within his political party, because, as I was trying to say, is that um, in 2010 the United States put in, you know how they have a comedian in Ukraine, they put in a carnival king in IT. His name was Sweet Mickey, and Sweet Mickey would do his 5 years against the people's constant, saying you're not elected properly, so on and so forth. And then he would choose this guy to be his successor. So we've had 10 years of this Clinton, Obama, fake election, and their desires was to lock down IT with this. They have this fourth largest embassy in the world there, with thousands of their people there, and mostly it's about spying on Cuba and Venezuela, but really the Russian presence in what U.S. and Monroe Doctrine and in Manifest Destiny says, it's their territory, like they shouldn't be there. So this IT is the weakest link between those places. This is what they do. So they want us to believe that these people with all this asset did not see all of the, I think it was like 8 or 9 Toyotas going up at 1 o'clock a.m. to the president's resident to kill him, right?
Right.
Not believable. But they he accepted two things. He accepted the credentials of the ambassador to Venezuela, the Russian ambassador to Venezuela was admitted by Jovenel Moise, the president of Haiti, who just got murdered. He was given letters, and he was going to be also the ambassador, the Russian ambassador to Haiti.
Hmm.
That has never ever happened.
So he had
Okay,
to leave. They had to get rid of him all the way.
they had, that pretty much sealed his faith. Also, he did something else. Remember, I was telling you about Aleppo and how the Lebanese and the Syrians are in Haiti, and they use these non-white mulatto people who pass for white, um, to own all the resources of Haiti. Well, Turkey, even though it's a NATO country, the United States is having a war with I can't remember the name of that president. Recep Erdogan, right? Some of you might know that under the Trump administration, the United States always wants Venezuela's oil, okay? And so it always sends, mercenaries in there. And under the Trump administration, even though Trump did less war than the establishment politicians before him, he did try to get rid of Maduro for the corporatocracy. Nicolas Maduro is the president duly elected of Venezuela. Trump announced that he was a terrorist, a drug trafficker, and he essentially put a $15 million bounty on the guy's head. And then there was mercenaries that tried to kill him, like they killed Jovenel Moise. There was they just want those resources.
Right.
And Venezuela is right underneath us. So imagine, and the thing is, they use their puppet and some of the other puppets, Negroes, like the Bahamas and some of the other, like I said, Negro collaborators, to vote against Maduro and acknowledge this unelected guy, Guaido, as the president of Venezuela. It just like put him as president, right? And that's
Right.
why, like,
Right.
when you see these U.S. media running around talking about, democracy in Ukraine, right? We have suffered so much regime change from these perpetrators that like, Haitians just laugh when they see these people on television. So yes, so uh he also traveled to Turkey before his July 7th, 2021 assassination with a large delegation. And Michel Martelly, the guy that had put him in office, just passed him, the seat. Um, like they were fighting, like there was an internal fight in this PHTK political party. And a guy named Laurent Lamotte, who used to be the prime minister under Michel Martelly, the guy put in by Obama and the Clintons, the carnival king, the misogynist, the guy who's like a bisexual, who uses his bisexuality against his political opponents. He goes on stage and he says he's going to sodomize Aristide, all
Wow.
kinds of perversion. This is what the Clintons put in office.
Wow.
Okay. And so there was an internal fight between them. And under Haitian law, you can't have a consecutive term. You can do your term and have a second term, but it can't be consecutive. So he was thinking that this guy was going to hold his seat, but then when they fell out, Jovenel was looking to get power because his power came from Sweet Mickey, Michel Martelly. And so Longalamo, who was the former prime minister under, took had geopolitical experience. He had a communications company. He helped take Jovenel Moïse to Turkey, where they made deals about Turkey coming to Haiti and creating all sorts of infrastructure for electricity and so forth. Well, at that time, Turkey was helping the opposition in Syria, right? Excuse
Mm.
me. The United States the United States is trying to take down the Syrian president Assad, and the Turkey is on the other side. So when Turkey bombed Aleppo, remember, that's the place where the billionaire from Haiti comes from. So on various levels, he had marked himself for death, because the Haitian oligarchs are not going to lose their position by
Right.
having the masses of Haitians have some allies that could help us break this chain that we have, because you can't break your chain just go by into the streets or by appealing to the Neanderthals' consciousness. You've got to have power. And when you don't have power, you leverage other people's power. And so he was looking for allies. He went to Turkey. He signed a lot of deals for Turkey to come in and do some infrastructure, because the United States does not want Haiti to be um, uh, um, developed. So
Right.
he was going to do some electrical and transportation and agricultural stuff. They killed him for uh, uh, for number one, for bringing in a Russian ambassador, and allying with a nuclear power, and number two, for going to Syria and trying to get some deals on behalf of the Haitian people. As you know, Syria, even though it's a NATO country, it's always sort of seen not a reliable NATO country, because it always protects its own interests.
Right.
So those were the reasons why they killed Jovenel Moïse. And I have a piece on it. I think it's called something about the geopolitical reasons for the assassination, the rapprochement between Russia, Venezuela, and Turkey. So you guys can find that on my website.
Right on. And we're gonna definitely post your website in the notes, because it's definitely a valuable source of information in regards to particularly around Haiti and these world quote unquote powers. Remember a few years ago, speaking of puppets, uh, uh, the rapper Wyclef ran for president. What was that about? You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
Let's, I hate to bring his name up, but I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
people were
yeah, yeah.
confused. Yeah,
He's a okay. So the 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 1%, they basically have so dumbed down the people of the world. They use um like the Haitian template to get rid of white supremacy is about getting rid of the Mandele, which is the stranger. That's what they call them in the King Congo language. Getting rid of Bafioti, which is their black collaborators, which assist them for personal gain, not collective liberation. And then there's another part to that template. It's Najoki. So it's their evil forces. So there's like the media, the 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 Eurasians, or specifically the Western Europe and the white settlers, Anglo Saxons, the core groups culture is about profit over people. And in that profit over people, they use the mechanisms that Neely Fuller talks about. They use the media, they use Hollywood, they use economics, law, sex, and saying sex, right? The guy they put in, I told you, was a bisexual. His political party that the Clintons put in is LGBT. He's called the men in pink. Those are the people. This is a political party running Haiti right now. So imagine, okay, this is Ogu's land, Dessalines' land. And so Wyclef is just like right now in the Ukrainian war, the United States has Sean Penn out there reporting, doing a documentary. That's kind of what they use these useful idiots for. And in exchange, you know, for instance, that at most all Hollywood movies are vetted by a CIA office that's right there in Hollywood.
Right.
That's why, you know, Black Panther was about, you know, giving the CIA, making the CIA, who is a you know, creates Death Squad for us, some sort of a hero, right? It's because they're writing the script. So the script is, it's easy. Like, you don't need to go into, like, they're never going to have another what they call a Black Messiah, right? By the COINTELPRO. Like they will not have. That's why a lot of people haven't heard my name, and I've been around for a long time. So they will never give you like media coverage because they did that inadvertently with Malcolm and Martin. Right. And since then, they're never going to do that again. But they will use these accommodationist Negroes that are successful in their sphere to disarm the public. Right. And make it seem as if, you know, it's an innocent thing. Well, Wyclef Jean was brought in during the 2004 bicentennial coup d'etat to legitimize the government that was it was a Boca Raton government. It was a foreign government. Haiti doesn't have, like, you know, if you don't have Haitian citizenship, you can't be president. Well, they went, they found some guy who had spent 40 years at the UN, Gérard Latorture, and made him prime minister, along with some old guy that was kind of a puppet. And Wyclef was the voice they used with the clueless schooled Haitians who are dancing to his whatever, you know, to disarm people and make like, you know, everything is good. Wyclef Jean is here, and you know, he
like Schwarzenegger, somebody.
Yeah, he eventually ran for president against Michel Martelly, another artist. The United States chose the Michel Martelly instead of Wyclef Jean.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because, you know, we've heard all types of things. He's related to some general there, and so on and so forth. And
he's his
uncle.
His uncle owns the Observateur. It's a newspaper, and he helped take down Aristide. And so in reward, he was given the ambassadorship from Haiti to Washington. And I remember during the earthquake, they got that Negro under the earthquake in 2010. They had him with they had him on a plane telling all Haitians, don't leave. You know, the United States is not going to take you. Don't try to leave the country. That's who he is. You know, he's a.
And he ended up getting shot.
That was Wyclef Jean, and
right.
You know, some shenanigan.
Probably shot itself. Speaking of Black buffoonery, we know that you know, there's been, you know, we remember the situation with the devils on horseback down in Texas. You know.
Oh yes. Yeah. So remember. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish.
No. It was all good. I was just gonna uh, asked to share your thoughts on that, and also, we talk about this whole black symbolism situation. What is this? The black vice president that we have. What's going on with her relationship
I
to
mean, it's sad, right? They use
indeed.
black women for all sorts of disarming black people, right? I mean, black women and that Clyburn man were the ones to save the near death campaign of Joe Biden.
Right.
So let me see. Which part of the question should I answer first? Um, what is what is how are they doing? Well, number one, why are the Haitians fleeing Haiti and then having to meet some cowboy with a whip in Del Rio, Texas, right?
Right. Right.
Well, uh, I'll give you an example. I just gave Haitians have been fighting for their dignity, for their country, for their assets. Um, since I got here, right? And before me, my grandparents, and before that, my father, since 1806, when they killed and assassinated Haiti's founding father, and began neocolonialism, which is putting a black face to imperialism. But so that guy I was telling you, that's Wycliffe Jean's
Uncle.
uncle,
Yes.
the ambassador. When that earthquake happened, the United States did not want Haitians to litter their lily white shores.
Hmm.
So there is a level of eugenics and all and the quiet genocide that's going on in Haiti, right? Because when the United States came into Haiti in 2003, right before they brought in the UN, there was something called the Ottawa Initiative. And it said that by 2019, there was going to be 20 million Haitians. And that was a bomb waiting to
Hmm.
happen. So that is the reason why they came in with the UN and this intention of depopulation. So you guys can see the Ottawa Initiative, and they said it. It was a meeting in Ottawa of foreign ministers. And I can tell you my own story. I went to Haiti for the bicentennial, and I was at a hotel in Haiti where the head of the OAS, Luigi Enualdi, was talking to one of my friends at the front desk. And I guess he thought he was talking to some, mulatto Haitian that, or some school Haitian who is selling out their country. And he said, the problem with the international community, that's the core group, is that they're letting Haitians run Haiti. This was December 31st, 2003, like a day before the I was there for the to celebrate the bicentennial
Wow.
as Aristide's guest at that time. And so I'll never forget that. I had a blog at that time, and I said, this vampire essentially said that Haitians are running Haiti, and that's a problem. So they had to come in and fix that problem by kidnapping the president and deporting him to Africa. 2004, they kidnapped Jean-Bertrand Aristide, did a coup d'etat. But so my whole life, right, I've dealt with uh, the unequal treatment of Haitian asylum seekers, right? You just said that I was from, Connecticut. Well, since I was 8 years old, I was one of the first to speak English because English is my second language. Um, so whenever someone was in trouble, my dad would or my mom would ask me to go and translate. And so I was doing this since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I saw how they were being treated and I think that's part of the reason why I became a lawyer. But on 2010, when that I forgot his name, just went out of my head, but Wycliffe Jean's uncle essentially was saying the U.S. policy, which is that they did not, even though international law provides that if your life is in danger, you are entitled to asylum, and you can ask for asylum and have a hearing. But our experience has been, they put us, Haitians were the first people they put in Guantanamo Bay before 9/11, and essentially putting us in their military camps. So what you saw in Del Rio is that in 2010, when there was this earthquake, um, people lost everything. Everything had fallen down in Port-au-Prince, and certainly they lost their voting cards. But the only thing that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton was talking about was elections. When people were, they had their hands and legs amputated, they had lost all their family. There was orphans, like we were trying to protect the orphans because the vultures came trying to take Haitians and do organ trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking, all of it. And so a lot of Haitians started when Obama said that they could not try to get asylum in the United States for the first time in Haitian history, instead of taking to the seas. One of the consequences of having all of these soldiers from Chile, from Brazil, from Panama, and Haiti is that they realized, these third world nations realized that Haiti wasn't as bad as they were told, that like we were not cannibals eating people.
Right.
So they decided to take advantage of the wealth that we had. See, the thing is, they keep saying we're poor, but Haitians have more land than any other nation in the Caribbean. So they would use their land and get a visa, and they went to Brazil. There was jobs there doing the Olympics, and then Chile and some of these other places, because they couldn't come to, and like I said, they 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 met these Central Americans doing their occupation of Haiti, and they told them about this road, this through 11 nations, that would get you to San Diego and Del Rio, that these Central Americans had been taking forever. Right now, the Russians who are fleeing Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are actually taking that road. Before, most Haitians only took to the seas. So that's kind of what happened. And then, so the people you saw in Del Rio, they did not just come from Haiti. They had left 10 years before.
Hmm.
Imagine that.
It's crazy.
And then after all of that, so some of them were in Brazil, and some of them were in Chile. Once they built the Olympic Village for Brazil, they kicked them out. Once they were used for their labor, they were kicked out, and a lot of them, just everywhere in the Caribbean. Okay, so there is a route. It's a 7,000-mile road, and they take it from Brazil and up to Colombia and through Panama and through these rivers, and they get raped by folks, and so that was the journey. And when they finally got to Del Rio, that's what you saw: a Haitian who was not allowed to get any food in the area of the United States, that they were sitting under that bridge. So
Right.
he went back over to Mexico, to where Mexico was, to get some food, and he had that food in his hand for his family. And that cowboy was, corralling him to push him back. That's kind of the story. Biden had, okay, they used to say that Trump separated families and was using Title 42 COVID law to summarily deport people, Haitians and Mexicans and people that came through that land route. But the demon rats have, I'm going to find my notes here so I can be very, very specific about it. But
Oh,
they
good.
have, Biden has deported in 12 months more Haitians than any other president in the United States. More people, as a matter of fact.
Hmm.
A million folks. And obviously, they're not deporting the Ukrainians. They're deporting Mexicans, Central Americans, and specifically um, those people you saw in the uh, Del Rio, under that bridge.
Right.
Um, most of them were deported, and within like 3 weeks, they put them on a plane. And the sad part was they took their identification, and then
Wow.
they're deporting them through a health law called Title 42. And it reminds me of how, for a century, the eugenics of what they did to Black women. And so there are women that I speak to and have represented that are in those detention centers that are being sterilized, because remember, they have a depopulation agenda, and they either use their vaccine, their Depo-Provera, their pills, all kinds of things. And so they have these Haitians who have no government to speak for them, because the government is a puppet government put in by the United States. So Biden, who has the largest war budget since World War II, he put, even though they got out of the Afghanistan war, Congress has a $770 billion budget for war, because that's really what the United States is about. That's
It's a
what
war
these
machine. Right.
do. So, um, um, and now they have Ukraine to justify all that. But in terms of the deportation and the unequal treatment of Haitians, people, of course, are asking for the Biden administration to end this Title 42, which is a law, which is like, an order that says that, they're protecting U.S. citizens from refugees that might have COVID. Of course,
Okay.
they've now made an exception for the white ones that are coming in now.
Yeah.
They don't have to take any a test or have any, they're not summarily sent back. As a matter of fact, the United States has, in contrast to, how they treat Black people, and now they have allocated something like $13.6 billion to assist Ukraine in this crisis. And then, because of the war that they just finished in Afghanistan, $7 billion to resettle Afghani evacuees. But Haitians are put into detention centers. They're forced back, and like I said, in 4 years, Biden, um, who, like, under Obama was called the deporter in chief, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
why when Trump came, I wasn't, I didn't care,
Right.
honestly, right?
Yeah.
Because for
Yeah.
me, if white on white violence is going on, I'm definitely prepared to put some fuel there. So, and that's exactly where we are now. There's this white on white violence, and our thing is looking for the power for our people, so that we can move out of this World War II paradigm where five Eurasian nations control 194 nations at the UN with a veto power. And now, they're fighting each other because since the end of the Berlin Wall, you have this unipolar power where the United States is the only power. And Madeleine Albright just died, and
Right. Yeah.
that warmonger was responsible for so many children in Iraq getting killed, and the Iraqi war, um, with all these lies about weapons of mass destruction. That whenever I hear um, women trying to tell me that just because you're a woman, you are
Let's talk
progressive,
about that.
I have to
Yes.
point out, Madeleine Albright, I mean, that woman, her ovaries were like, she was like, they were made of bombs. I mean, what she was doing. um so is, you remember
Right.
Hillary Clinton,
Yeah. Yeah.
after they murdered Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, she was like cackling like the devil she is.
Right. Right.
um or the other
Con-
one, um uh,
Condoleezza.
oh yeah, the oil princess or whatever they called her. They
Yeah.
named the
Yeah.
ship after her. The black ones are on the Republican side. You have Condoleezza Rice, but on the Demon Rat side, you have Susan Rice, Cheryl Mills,
That's right.
and these other buffoonery women, black women, who maintain the system of white supremacy. But since we're going to talk a little bit about Ukraine, around that time, you had another one. Like, remember, this is something I think that one of my problems sometimes with Pan Africanists is that they're still back in like 20th century, not 20th century, 19th century, late 19th century mechanisms, right? The mechanism that were used like in the 60s can't be used right now in this age to liberate ourselves. Like, we have to start like with a different mindset. We have to figure out how to get power. Um, and how to manipulate power. And it's not going to be about the masses, because they have dumbed down and co-opted the masses. And I'm always giving that example because I was, before I was an entertainment attorney, I was a corporate finance attorney. And in that space, I learned the power of the corporate entity,
Hmm.
so that you have 8 billion people on the planet, right? And less than 1% control that. And how do they control it? Through the corporate entity that has no age limit, that survives the shareholder and the owner, that some of them have been around since thousands of years. The West Indian and East Indian companies, and the banksters, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, these people metastasize themselves within the corporate structure, so that as a lawyer, I'm always wondering when someone's going to start talking about, when is a African warrior going to talk about the fact that corporations have more rights than human beings,
That's right.
right? So I mean, when I learned about it in law school, I was like, what do you mean? That's a artificial legal entity. You know how right now, one of the robber barons, like, you know, the biggest corporations right now, the high tech ones, um, like Microsoft, a couple of $1 trillion in value.
Right.
Um, what's the one that's above it? Apple,
Apple. Yeah.
Google, Amazon, and
Yeah.
Elon Musk, right? Those types of people, and then all the banksters, right? Um, when you have that kind of a system, throwing the uneducated masses at it is not it.
Right.
They are not going to have any clue how to even fight that. And the people who do have clues of how to fight that are busy working for the man.
Right.
So I have stood to try to explain to Pan Africanists and other freedom fighters, listen, This must be now about economic liberation and three things: money, media, and military. Without those powers, we can't do anything.
Hmm.
Right? Of course, it has to come from a spiritual source, right? That's why I'm Èzili Dantò, right? Bullets or dust. But you you might have that psychology, but you need to get the 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 the,
Spirituality.
the strategy, right?
Right, right, right.
And so for me, it doesn't take like Dessalines, had nine. Like it's like that number that can't be divided. Like there's a lot of ways of doing this, but we need the brains to do that, and it can't be this what these Pan Africanists are doing, because it's not going to work with the masses. I mean, Castro proved his success. I mean, he started out with a small little number and then got there. But I always see these Africans talking about organizing the masses. And it always bothers me, because I know that that's not going to happen, because that's a recipe for the white man to come in and destroy. And he does that because all he's going to do is find whoever the leader is and cut the head, and then you have the body with nothing. So we've got to be able to understand what the enemy is. Our enemy is that corporatocracy that can change its name, that can it can go into bankruptcy and then come out as a brand new entity, but it's the same people running it.
Right.
It's
So
like,
that's what the government is. That's what the United States is.
yeah, but it controls the government,
Right. That's
right?
what I'm saying. It's the ingredients that makes it. Right.
Yeah, they control the politicians, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
in order to be a politician, you have to kowtow to these people, because they're the ones that are going to fund you. They're going to fund you and put you in office. And if you're not saying what they want, you're going to end up being Cynthia McKinney.
Hmm.
So that's part of like some of the conversations I would like to have with other freedom fighters. How are we going to break this? For me, I know as a lawyer some of the ways of keeping them busy. One of the things that really bothers me about us, and I'm talking about IET, is that we're always reactive, right? Some big crisis come along, we're out in the streets, and then, but part of it is because people are so poor, they're in the grind. So that you have to have a little bit of
Checking out Riot Starter TV. You are. I
I
think
don't know.
Ezili's.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now. You're back again.
Oh,
Cool.
it was. I don't know what that is.
You're talking that
So
revolutionary
anyway,
stuff.
yeah. Give me a second. I think my Let me just make sure this thing does not. So yeah. I just want to
Cool.
make sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know what I was talking about before I got into that corporate thing. I was talking about the Title 42, how it's used against our people, the same way they used it against the, Black women in prisons or Mexican women in prisons. They sterilize them. I mean, health laws have always been used for depopulation.
Now you're
And
representing some women currently who are.
yes,
I know you
yes.
talked about sterilization. Can you touch on that a little bit as far as like some of the work you're doing now around some of these women who are literally being sterilized because I think that when you talk about sterilization and these different laws, folks look at it like it's some thing of the past and it's over now, and you know what I mean. So can you touch on that as
No,
well?
no, it's not over now. Of course, I remember, was it Fannie Lou Hamer? They
Yes,
sterilized her against her, consent, right? Gave her a Hicks, what is it called again? I
hysterectomy,
can't say that word. Her,
hysterectomy or
yes, yes. Say that again, please.
hysterectomy.
hysterectomy.
Yes.
And that's what they're doing. Taiba, tie, they're tying your tubes. They're, like they did back in the day. Um, because like I said, they said that there was going to be 20 million Haitians in 2019. Right now we're about 14 million. But that we would have, like, they're just killing us though, right? There was a cholera that killed 30,000 Haitians that the UN brought in. They poisoned our water. Um, um, I try to do a case there too. But right now, really, what's happening is that Haitians who are caught in, let's say, Del Rio, right? I uh, they had babies. Like there was a couple. I mean, I can't go through the specific, names or anything like that. But let's say a Haitian has a baby, right? While she's having the baby, they will tie her tubes,
Mm.
and then she'll be
Without
bleeding,
permission,
and
just
we
like
only find out afterwards that happened. You understand? And you can't really figure out who did it because I don't even know what hospital she was in. And she doesn't know because she doesn't speak English. But I know the signs of her I can't say that word.
hysterectomy.
Hysterectomy
Right.
and the tubal libation and your sterilization, because a lot of it has to do with like just heavy bleeding. And so I've been across so many of those women that I could sort of like see it. I was like, did you have a baby and where were you? And I mean, it's sort of like, so that's part of what's happening, because when you have all these people coming from Brazil, Colombia, going through 11 nations, um, and going through all of that, and by the time some of them get raped, um, when someone shows them a kindness and give them a shower and give them a hospital bed, they don't really think that person is going to sterilize them.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, and this is not something they just do to Haitians, right? I mean, let me see if I can find my notes. Recently in California, you guys can look it up. They were sterilizing, black women and non-white women in California prisons, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and like hundreds of Mexican Americans have been coerced through tubal ligation at this county hospital in Los Angeles. Like, I know that I know Puerto Ricans, they did that to him too. You all remember the story of the what is it? The Ralph sisters. They were 12 and 14. Forget
Right.
about
Right.
these you know, southern states, Alabama, Mississippi. You all know, of course, Harry, what they did to, medical apartheid, what they did to
Right. Harriet Washington.
Henrietta Lacks with
Right.
her
Right. Right.
Hella sales. They just took it. Um, and like I said, in 1961, they civil rights leader Lou Hamer, she received a hysterectomy by a white doctor without her consent while undergoing like they tell you, like you have fibroids, uterine tumors and things like that. So it's so widespread back then. They used to call it the Mississippi apodectomy. Um,
Yes.
so those things are happening, right? Because they have no rights and they have no government to assist them. That is why, like when I look at the Supreme Court and these like some of the hotbed issues that are in front of this lady, what's her name again?
Uh,
Ketanji.
Ketanji. Yes. Ketanji. Ketanji
The
Jackson Brown. Right. Ketanji Brown
Yeah,
Jackson.
so
Yeah.
she's gonna be, she's doing the hearings, and one of those issues, it always sort of like, I'm always wondering when I'm going to see like a black woman talk about the real issue of this abortion, and how Planned Parenthood with Margaret Sanger is all about, was all about is all about, to a certain extent, sometimes eugenics, because they
Right.
put these in our communities. So do you really think they're going to ban Roe v. Wade and not have the ability to sterilize black women?
Hmm. Wow. Wow.
So when I hear that conversation, because my whole life as a lawyer, the political conversation in America, between the conservatives and the I mean, those words don't even mean anything, but let's say the conservatives and the liberals is like, one is pro-life and one is pro-choice.
Right.
But like, they have the votes right now. The Supreme Court, as I look at Miss Katanja uh, Brown Jackson,
Right.
uh, there's a conservative minority of 6-3 right now. So if they wanted to ban abortion, they have the votes,
Right.
right? And this is not the first time the Republicans have had the vote to do it, right? But essentially that they use it as a punching ball for political capital.
Right. So
So I mean, there's a lot of other stuff I can get into, but you let me know. Did I answer your question, please?
no, no, you did, but I definitely want to. You mentioned Ketanji, and black folks. It's like she's the best thing since cooked food right now. We keep saying that Sleepy Joe Biden, we see that he keeps using black women, the first black this, the first black that, so on and so forth. I wanted to know, what does Ketanji mean, you know, to our culture? What does she mean to black women when you talk about symbolism? In your eyes, coming from, what do you see?
Number one for me, as someone who's fought uphill against trying to get the law to be applied to my people, the institution that she is being that she's being a candidate for, the Supreme Court, is a is a it's the crucible, it's the arbiter, it's the place where white supremacy is upheld. So that's my first thing, right? You look at it, and you know that the Supreme Court is the place where white supremacy is, was put together. And I can tell you, just to do with regards to that abortion, like really, the conservative, in my estimation, they want to keep Roe v. Wade because it's sort of like a political punching bag, um, to go against the Democrats, so that they can look like they care about babies, and Democrats don't care about babies. It's all that emotive lie of these,
Right.
Malin Albright and Hillary Clinton people. They care about babies, but they're killing Haitians everywhere,
Yeah. The planet.
Iraqis
Right.
everywhere, right? But
Right.
they want to stand in your face, and it's sort of like a dog and pony show when I look at it, because of my experience in these arenas. So for me, Roe v. Wade, which is the law, I think it was 1973, that allowed for abortion to be legal. Um, and like I said, you have these pro-lifers that go against the pro-choice, and it's like divided between party line between the duopoly, the demon rats, and the Republicans. And it really is like something that they use, the Republicans use in general, to hit the demon rats, and keep, because it fires up their religious conservative base doing elections. And we're coming up to the midterms right now.
Right.
So when you ask me about Miss Judge Jackson, that's kind of the dog and pony show, right? You see these hearings, they talk about the same thing over and over and over again. What is the interest of black people?
Right.
Let me look at it. So, they're trying to say that she's, because she's a Democrat, uh, Republicans are hard on crime, and supposedly the demon rats are soft on crimes. Everybody knows that's not true because we lived through the Clintons and their crime bill, right? And Biden, who wrote it. So I don't know why we keep having these conversations that make absolutely no sense. So in her hearing, the areas that they confronted her, and it was along party lines, was about her record as a judge in terms of sentencing, and whether she had sentenced below the legal guidelines. So they were trying to prove that on child pornography cases, because like I said, the Republicans use pedophilia and sexual offenses against women and children, in a way to get political points. Um, but as I said, they don't care about capital punishment, but they do care about that baby that might not be born. They don't care about the bombs that are being dropped right now in by Saudi Arabia in Yemen. They don't care about the core group that's killing Haitians that never did anything bad to any other nation, but they do care about that unborn baby. But like I said, I think it's hypocrisy. I think if in fact they wanted to, right now, um, Trump put in three judges, three conservative judges. They have six to three and nine, so they have the vote to actually take down anything they want. And Ketanji Brown Jackson is not going to make a difference. She's taking the place of Stephen Breyer, a judge that she used to clerk for back in the day. Justice, he's retiring, but like I said, her confirmation would just would be a replacement of a, I hate these terms, liberal justice with another, but it still maintains that like 6-3 conservative majority. And I think that for my people, for Black people right now, I think the biggest thing for us is not thinking about Joe Biden's or the demon rats midterm elections, which is what they're using this for, as if like they use these symbolic, giving Blacks these symbolic positions instead of Kamala Harris, or symbolic position. But what Black policy is this woman or even this judge going to? I mean, she can't do it as a judge. Like I said, the Supreme Court, the way it's created, it's constrained by precedent, and precedent maintains white supremacy. There's the limitation is in the infrastructure of the system. I'm here to take down that system.
Right.
So like, precedent is the case that rules. Right now, the precedent is like a case like Roe v. Wade, that gives the right to a woman to choose, and to decide whether or not she has an abortion. And of course, for the last 30 years, since not even the last 30 years, since the civil rights movement, there has been a reversal since the Warren Court. It's become more and more conservative. And you've got that other Negro there, Clarence Thomas, who unfortunately took the seat, sort of a Thurgood Marshall, and they have the votes, so they can pretty much do whatever they want. I noticed that when doing her hearing, she talked about how careful she was in deliberating decisions, how she understands the judicial role, which is constrained by careful adherence, to precedent. Well, it was precedent for us to be slaves. It was precedent until like the 14th, 13th, and 15th Amendment, to be sort of like not have equal rights and be segregated. It took 100 years. And I tell you, right, as a lawyer, I remember when I was a young law student, I see all this thing now about, how whites don't want to feel bad about racism and white supremacy. But I tell you, and I'm sure other lawyers went to school, some of them couldn't even do it. When you read these cases that enshrined and enforced white supremacy, like Plessy v. Ferguson, which is the case that historically shaped America, and to say that segregation did not violate any human rights that we had, right? So, like, the Supreme Court as an institution, since, let's say, the compromise of like 1877, which ended Reconstruction, right? Because during Reconstruction, we had uh, uh, during those years, we had senators and so forth, Congress people, but they needed to, the South, which had lost the war from like 1865 to the end of the Civil War to 1965, which is the Civil Rights Voting Act. That's 100 years of the Supreme Court and state courts writing opinions, contorting themselves to say that Black people are biologically inferior to white people, to promote eugenics. Remember, eugenics as wasn't used by the Nazis first. It was used by America, created it. So you have, like I said, you have 1877, you have the compromise where the North and the South decide to essentially throw Black people to the wolves. And we got no reparations. They got reparation till the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which gave us some civil rights, and then the voting rights of 1965, and then what the law of the land was, that they didn't, just like they don't today, they don't want Haitians to taint lily white America. Well, they didn't want Blacks in general to taint the 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 the, the public transportation, schools where you get an education, or housing. All of those things came like in the 60s, but there was a reversal. Like, and this is what we have to understand: the Neanderthal never changes, right? You can push, 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 and you can get these like integration laws, and get rid of segregation, and the horrific parts of it. But at the end of the day, Brown versus education wasn't really. It was the law that that destroyed, that overturned. Okay, so Plessy versus Ferguson is like, I don't know, 18 something 90s, and it wasn't overturned until 1954.
Wow.
This is almost 150 years. This is what the this is what the this is why the Supreme Court is such an important institution for white supremacy. Its structure is about these laws that can't be overturned, even if they're amoral, because it's a political institution. Because right now you have, depending on who nominates you, they expect you to vote for what they want. And just like there's a bipartisan US consensus that profit over people is a good thing, they call it capitalism, but it really isn't capitalism. It's monopoly capitalism. So the Supreme Court, separate but equal theory of segregation, with like Plessy versus Ferguson, Like I was telling you before, Kalanji, how I recently read something where uh, a woman I think it was a white woman. She wrote a play about Emmett Till, and there
Right.
was a black woman who was the producer. And I read that like there was a petition that 1,500 people signed because they didn't white folks did not want to see this play because it would make them feel guilty,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so imagine us. We have
Right.
to endure reading these decisions where these white men are analyzing why we are inferior. I mean, for 100 years, that is written in American history. And it continues to be written because I remember when I was in law school and after, they had changed it to reverse discrimination.
Right.
And right now, there's that, the only, I think there's an affirmative action case that's coming up, but it's not going it's probably going to be decided before her confirmation hearing and she's sitting on the court. So in terms of what do black people get out of these symbolic, not policy rewards that they get for giving their votes to the demon rats, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to me that my people are still that ignorant. Because women can be as much of an enslaver and a warmonger equal to men, right? They can be as much of, like I said, like in Haiti, it's white women, two white women, Ellen Lalume and Michelle Sisson. One is at the UN, both Americans, a career ambassadors. Sad, ironic part about it is these white women got their jobs because black males, like the Panthers, fought during the civil rights movement. And then they came in under affirmative action.
Wow.
But the fact that we don't have lawyers to go into that system um, and change it, because there came a point in time when nobody was doing what Thurgood Marshall was doing. Everyone was going into making that dollar. So that's where we are. And
Right.
so, like I said, my point to people, young women, young men who are listening, with regards to what is it that black people are getting when uh, Ketanji Brown becomes whatever justice.
Justice. Right.
Like I said, I listened to her with some. I didn't watch the whole thing, but she seems well qualified to actually do what she does. She's a good writer. They say she's definitely she's qualified within that system, the one that we need to take down.
Right. Right. That's most important part you said, the system that we need to take down, because I think that we're still caught up in first black bullshit. Pardon my English. We get caught up in oh, it's the first black vice president, it's the first black mayor, it's the first black governor, and all of that it just means that neocolonialism is coming in a better dress packaging. You know what I'm saying? Better packaging.
Yeah, and
Let's
it's very sad because we've seen what the urban city mayors that are black, what they've left us.
right, right.
We've seen that electoral politics is not democracy or liberation.
Not a doubt. Not a doubt. Um, Before we bail on the good people, you know, we talked about the Ukraine and Russia. We talked about what's going on in Haiti. Um, if you could predict what's next from your angle, from your vantage point, in regards to this whole fiasco over in the Ukraine, what would you say? What do you think? Because you mentioned how they use the same playbook over and over, no matter where they go to colonize, no matter where they go to set up military bases and coups, so on and so forth. It's the same old two step. What do you think? What do you how's it looking from your vantage point?
Well, number one for Black folks all over the planet, obviously, when the dinosaurs are fighting, they might just fall on us. So we need to have some strategy, some exit strategy.
I know.
In particular, there's the economic issue that's, to me, overshadows, for instance, this nomination. People are feeling the pinch from gas prices, and I don't know the figure, but I think that Ukraine and Russia are the bed basket. They make like X percentage of the wheat, right? Food. And so there's going to be higher prices in food, high inflation, all-time gas prices. And the Fed is bringing up interest rates. So, um, and we may just be on the brink of nuclear war. Those are
I know.
some of the consideration. But your question was like, and then of course, this is all in the shadow of their pandemic,
Right.
and what that has done to working people, and the paradigm change, right? I see an opportunity for Black folks globally to destroy the World War II alliance. I mean, they're destroying themselves, right?
Right.
So the World War II alliance is United States, France, England, China, and Russia. Um, the EU nations right now is having this Cold War again with Russia, right? But what we have to understand as Black people is that these Eurasians have been fighting each other for thousands, millenniums, until they spilled out and the Mongolians came here and destroyed Black people in the West, in the Western Hemisphere. And they call them Indians now, what was left. But there were Black people here, original to the planet, before they got here. um, I think we have to have a rooted in our history as to what the Eurasians are and what their culture is and how that is different. Profit over people is not humane. We want to put people over profit. And for me, um, I don't see, unless they go into their metaverse and stay there, put the I think we have to elevate our consciousness, get rid of the corporation that has more human rights than human beings, make that something that people understand. Um, but is Russia going to take over Ukraine? And if it does, or if it doesn't, can the alliance that maintains the Bretton Woods organizations, that maintains the UN, for instance, can that alliance continue? It suffered through the Cold War, and now the Cold War is worse. It's worse than the Cold War, right? So the Russia, Putin told the West, you can't have NATO military at my border. And the West was going to be Terminator and Schwarzenegger and Rambo, and they were just going to keep pushing. They pushed through all those nations that used to be buffer zones of part of the Soviet Union. And I think this is I think this is the last stand for Russia. I mean, if Russia loses this, it's going to be sharks in the water, and the United States is not going to stop.
Yeah.
And that will bring us to nuclear war at some point. At some point, this is where they're heading. The question really is, what are Black people doing? Are we always going to continue to be colonized, both domestically and internationally? Or are we going to envision our freedom and move into it? I think that um, we're just so not there. I'm always saying to Haitians, Jamaicans, uh, 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 go back to the land, plant your food. Self reliance is liberty. But I think that's like not sexy enough for people. Um,
Right. Right. Yeah.
so my that's my advice to people, is to uh, prepare yourself for blackouts, prepare yourself for having food, prepare your children. Um, I think black people should continue to have a lot of children, okay? Because we're gonna lose a lot. But have children that's gonna have some consciousness, not that's gonna be, I don't know, Cardi B or whatever they're doing over there.
Right on. Right on.
Um, I think that we have to go back to the basics, like how touch the land. Uh, uh, um, it's interesting to me that there's an opportunity for new alliances. I see, for instance, Colombia, which has been a right wing nation for so long, is edging towards getting a new president that may not continue to be an ally of the United States.
Right on.
And if Lula comes back into office in Brazil, that's like the third biggest economy in the Western Hemisphere. If they align with Turkey and Russia, that's all she wrote. This unipolar world is gone, and IT will have an opportunity. And we're pushing for it. We're pushing to find allies to free our people. The United States will never allow Haiti to, or the black masses in America to be anything else than at the very bottom of the totem pole in mass. So all of this other token crap is just tokenism. I always define black as a black person. I give you your black card if you're about the elevation of the race, the elevation of the collective. But I think there's a there's a trend now to run away from that, from group economics, like Dr. Claude Anderson talks about, and all the other things that we know that we have to do. But essentially, I think that there's opportunity, and then there's a lot of risk. To minimize your risk, you try to be as self-reliant as possible. Know where your food is coming from. A collective economy, and then try to ally, like I said, with other blacks, and create. You can create your own economy by
Checking out Riot Started TV. Um, might be having a little technical difficulties with the Ezili on the side. Hopefully she'll be back on and we close out. But we definitely want to thank you all for coming on board. Like I mentioned earlier, this of course this is a very educational uh, piece here today. So we thank Ezili for all that she's put in, and of course we're going to have her back on again. Um, Remember this Thursday, like I said, it's the 1 year anniversary of Riot Starter TV. So I'm gonna have something going on. I'll let you all know. I can't. I mean, I feel bad giving you so much because, I think some of you have been, haven't been peeping what we've been doing. Some of you haven't really appreciated what we bring in. So we might need to do recaps. We might need to go see what's really going on. But give me a couple seconds. We're gonna see if we can get Ezili back, and y'all stay tuned. Riot Starter TV. Okay, welcome back. Riot Starter TV. I think we have Ezili back. And peace. How you looking over there? Looks like she might be froze for a second. We'll bring her on in a couple seconds. But definitely make sure you tap into our entire channel, Black Power Media. Continue to support our efforts and our works. And if you like what you're seeing right here today, definitely, like I said, subscribe. If you have it uh, in your heart, make sure you support our Patreon as well, because we like to make sure that our hosts are taken care of, but definitely stay tuned, stay with us. We love and appreciate you. I know that one of the things Ezili was talking about was around preparation. We run a organization called the FTP movement, and one of the programs, or one of the arms of organization, is the Urban Survival Preparedness Institute, and that's an organization that is co-chaired by myself and Brother Kalonji Changa. Make sure you check out Warrior Class on Saturdays, because of the fact that Balagoon's bringing a whole lot of good stuff to the table as well. Him, I need our brother Belay, rather, and our sister. So make sure you definitely check out those joints. We've had technical difficulties, like I said, with Ezili, but we'll definitely have her back on again. We appreciate you all supporting our work and supporting our efforts and our energy. Stay on top of the world. Stay ready for revolution. And make sure you tap in tomorrow morning for the Remix Morning Show, which is, for folks who don't know, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern, every Tuesday through Thursday. And like I said, I'll be back on Thursday night for Riot Starter TV Anniversary Edition. Thank you all for your support, gratitude, and be careful out there, because it's real serious. A lot going on. Stay ready for revolution. War without terms. Riot Starter TV. We out.